Hello and welcome. My name is Quinn, and I am one of the managers of the Foster Adopter Support Team. Okay, let's dive right in. So, first off, what is the point of this presentation? Why are we here? Um, the teenage stage is difficult. That's an understatement. It's very difficult. And the world of dog training is convoluted and confusing and difficult to navigate. Everyone seems to have an opinion, whether qualified or not, and everywhere you look is conflicting advice. So, my goal here, I have two goals. One, to help you understand what is going on with your dog, and two, to give you the skills to navigate this stage. So that when this is all over, when adolescence has finished, you have a well-mannered companion and hopefully a little sanity left too. Um, okay, so first off, what is going on? What is happening with your puppy? Dr. Kathy Murphy, who's a veterinary surgeon and researcher in dog cognition, says the inhibitory neurons of the amygdala that help to dampen down emotional responses don't fully mature until the end of adolescence. Communication between the frontal cortex and the amygdala decreases during adolescence, and extinction memory is impaired during adolescence. So what does that actually mean? What's going on with the teenage brain? If we want to break this down into more simplistic terms, we have the emotional part of a dog's brain finishes developing first. This is the emotional, instinctive part of the brain. And the rational part of the brain finishes much later. That would be the part of the brain that practices patience and focus and thinking. For giant breed dog owners, we get the best news, and that is that this gap is longest for us. So in a smaller breed dog, this might be done by a year and a half. In giant breed dogs, the peak gap, so the worst of it, is between 10 and 20 months. Some people say 8 and 18 months, but somewhere around 10 and 20 months, but it won't end until about the third year, somewhere in the third year for giant breeds. So we might as well understand what's going on because this represents a large portion of our time with our dogs. Um, and a teenager feels an emotion strongly and they don't have the thinking power to dampen it. And that last part that was about extinction memory, what does that actually mean? It means that they are also more susceptible to bad experiences and associations becoming lifelong triggers. So we sometimes have to save them from themselves, help them help themselves. Okay, so now we know what's going on with the teenage brain a little more, but if you are watching this, then you don't just have a teenage dog, you also have a teenage rescue dog. So we need to ask ourselves, what's up with the rescue brain? Dr. Christina Spalding, in her book Stress Factor in Dogs, talks a little bit about some of the things that go into what we understand as temperament or threshold for overarousal. When we say a dog is bomb proof, this is what we're talking about. She lists six variables. We have genetics, in utero pregnancy, neonatal stress. So this would be like maternal care issues or just after they're born, early socialization, so things dogs are exposed to before 3 months old. And this would also be the relationships they form with their litter mates and mother before 3 months old. And then we have late socialization. Late socialization ends about that point where the amygdala has finished the main portion of its growth. So for giant breed dogs, remember this is around 8 months, maybe 10 months on the high end, and training using gentle methods versus using aversives. And the reason why Dr. Christina Spalding mentions this is because aversive training methods carry an added risk of aggressive or fearful behavior. So aversive training methods would be, of course, physical punishments or corrections, collar popping, newspaper spanks, prong collar, e-collar, things like that. Now, you may have noticed just by looking at this list that if you're here and you aren't a breeder who chose the genetics or had control over the pregnancy, then you have control over exactly two of these things, which is late socialization and the training methods used. And if you got your teenage dog from us after that period, you may have control over one or none of these. So first and foremost, I'd like to step back and say that it's important to give ourselves some grace when we're dealing with teenage dogs because some of the things are of our control. And it's also worth noting that your dog had control over none of these. So if you're willing to give yourself some grace, we need to be willing to give our dog some grace. Okay, so what can you do about it? Empathy is great. Empathy and understanding what's going on with our dogs is great, but we actually also need to live with them. So the next three sections, we're going to discuss how to navigate this stage, practically speaking.